Hello everybody, thank you for tuning in. PLO Professor here. I appreciate you guys checking us out here. I got a couple of housekeeping issues and then I'm going to dive in today's episode, which is going to be Badugi. So stay tuned if you're curious when the lesson starts right up there. So a couple housekeeping issues. I am having a meetup game in Chicago at Chicago Charity Group on September 16th and 17th in Chicago. Location yet to be determined. But if you're in the Chicago area and it's September 15th, they do PLO, which is not going to be my meetup game. It's their normal PLO game. I might be there. And then on the 16th and the 17th, we're going to do a meetup game where we're going to do round by round, one round of 4-card PLO 4, and then one round of PLO 5, high, low, big O. It's going to be a 1-2-5 with a $100 minimum buy-in to a $500 maximum buy-in. I believe last time we were in Chicago, I think we did 75% match the stack or something to that effect. So I still got to clear out those details with the guy who runs the room, Brendan, and I forget the other guy's name. But that's for it for about housekeeping. I am tentatively planning on going to Sacramento for the WSOP come October. I don't know that for sure. But I will be in December with Wayne for the WPT at the Win. So we don't have any meetup games officially scheduled yet, but considering we're both PLO specialists and mixed game specialists, and the WPT does an amazing job with those series, that's where we're planning on being. Still not sure on the WSOP in Sacramento. They haven't released their entire schedule. And generally the WSOP does one PLO on a Monday, and then they follow it up with like 12 tournaments of no limit hold'em, and then the following Monday they do a PLO high-low. So it really makes it not cost effective for people like myself to travel all the way across the country, but we're gonna see what we can do. I keep talking with the circuit directors at the WSOP to get more PLO and more mixed games. Some of the directors at the WSOP feel like PLO is actually going to be the next wave, as well as mixed games. And honestly, between you and me and the rest of the people watching this channel, mixed games and PLO is really soft. Really, really soft. Really soft. So, let's dive in today's episode. This is not going to be that very long, but I'm covering another triple draw game. If you're curious what kind of mixed games there are, they are draw games, and then there are flop games, and then there's stud games. So far for the draw game, we've covered deuce to 7, and in this one, we're going to cover Badugi. The reason why I'm doing it in this order, the next one I'm going to cover is going to be ace to 5 low ball, which is very similar to deuce to 7. And the reason why I'm covering it in this order is because a lot of times when you deal with mixed games, you'll end up running into Badusi and Badasi, and then you're like, what the hell? I learned what deuce to 7 was. I learned what Badugi was. Now you're throwing Badusi at me? So in order to learn that, you have to know what Badugi is. Now Badugi is, again, a triple draw game. You start off with 4 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4. The nut Badugi, which I have never had, is an ace, a deuce, a 3, and a 4. Oh, what was that? Jamie in the back said, oh, Professor, that's not the nut low. No, it's not. They have to be different suits, completely different suits. That's what Badugi means. It means Badugi. So next time you're looking at a PLO hand and you see that you have a club, a diamond, a heart, and a spade, don't say Badugi as you fold it because it's going to give some things away. But they all have to be different suits. So this could be a spade, club, diamond, heart, or vice versa. Any order does not matter. The point of Badugi is you need 4 different suits, and the lowest hand is ace, deuce, 3, 4, okay? Now, there's some things and rules that you need to know about Badugi. First of all, any 4-card Badugi, even if it's king, queen, jack, 10, as long as it doesn't pair, if it's got spade, clubs, hearts, and diamonds, will beat a 3-card Badugi. What is a 3-card Badugi? Let's say you have ace of spades, deuce of clubs, 3 of diamonds, and then your last pull, you pull the 4 of diamonds. You have a 3-card Badugi because you have one of each suit, and here you are missing a heart. So anything that has 4 different hearts or 4 different suits is going to be beating anything with 3 different suits. Now, there's a reason why that's important, because Badugi is one of those crazy games where keeping track of what suits you have in your hand, kind of like deuce to 7, keeping track of those deuces, those 3s, those 4s, those 5s, and those 7s is really important when it comes to drawing, okay? You might have seen a couple people talk about Badugi when they say, I was always drawing 1 and my opponent was always drawing 2 and somehow I kept losing. Usually people who say that don't understand the game of Badugi. So let me go ahead and explain a few strategies and tips for you. First of all, it's a 6-handed game. It is triple draw, just like deuce to 7, which means you have an opening round in which you can raise. After 1 betting round, you choose to discard and then you draw. And then you have another betting round, choose to discard and draw. And then another betting round, choose to discard and draw. And then a final betting round. So there's a lot of good bets here in Badugi. And again, any 4-card Badugi will beat a 3-card Badugi, even if it's a king high. So even if you have like king of clubs, 8 of spades, deuce of diamonds, and let's just say you started off with ace deuce, ace of hearts, that is going to beat a 7, 5, 4, 3, where the 3, 4, and 5 are different suits, but then the 7 mimics it. Now keep in mind, pairs do hurt you. So if you have, for example, 5 of spades and the 5 of hearts, and then the 4 of clubs and the 3 of spades, you in fact have a 3-card Badugi with either one of the 5, which means any 4-card Badugi is going to win. Now, Professor, what's the strategy? What's the starting hands that we want to start with? That depends. Excellent question. Mark in the back, I appreciate you asking that question. Well, Mark in the back, if you happen to be in position, if you're on the button, you can play a lot more wide open if you want. What do I mean by that? Well, let's say you start off with a hand where you have the 3 of spades, the jack of spades, the 8 of spades, and let's just say you have like the 9 of diamonds, okay? Now, normally you would say, well, I only have 2 suits here. This is a pretty bad hand. And not only that, but I'm drawing to an 8 low. Actually, I'm drawing to a 9 low because you have 1 diamond and 1 spade. That's a pretty bad Badugi hand. Generally speaking, in Badugi, you want to start off with around an 8 to a 7 low to start off with. And you usually want to start off with 2 to a low at least. I'm going to put at least, and I'm going to put a little asterisk on this. Keep in mind, one of the things I'm going to tell you guys, all of my instructional videos, and they've all been set up this way, they're designed to give you a good basis for start, and then after you play some, you can kind of figure out what your own little niche is. If you want to be a little tighter, you want to be a little bit more loose, aggressive, whatever the case, you need to figure out what works for you. There's not one solution. Just like in Parliament Omaha, there's not, hey, this is the end-all, be-all solution of everything. There's 272,000 different combinations of starting hands in Parliament Omaha, or somewhere around there. So there's not one specific way to play perfectly. What this is designed to do is to give you a good basis so you can say, you know what, let's play Badugi, I'm kind of curious. And by the way, at the WSOP last year, at the Paris, was one of the best 10-20 Badugi games the night before the Badugi tournament. There's a $1,500 Badugi tournament. I walk in, I'm looking to play Big O. Next thing you know, there's a Badugi table, 10-20. And I'm like, I've never seen just a Badugi table. And let me tell you, everybody except me and one person had no idea what they were doing. They were completely experimenting. People were capping it, 5-betting, capping, and then drawing 3, things like that. In first position, just things you'd never see. It was the juiciest Badugi game I've ever been a part of. So if you're going to the series next year, if you're playing in a tournament that has Badugi the next day, you should throw an interest list up there, get some experience before that tournament starts. But let's continue, because a lot of times when you play Badugi, you're going to be playing it as part of a mixed game with other games like stud and deuce to 7 and things like that. So moving right back along to Badugi, if you have a hand where you have 3 of one suit, keep in mind, there are only 13 cards of every suit. So there's 13 hearts, 13 clubs, 13 diamonds, and 13 spades. What that means is if you start off with 3 out of the 13, your opponent is in fact only drawing to 10 cards left in the deck. Now, if we just take raw numbers and say there's 52 cards to start off with and your head's up because everybody else folded, okay? you have a total of 44 cards to pull from. Depending on if they're pulling 1 or 2 or 3, you can kind of factor in they probably don't have a spade. Okay, and these are some situations in which you can pretend to snowball, which I talked about a little bit in Deuce to 7, which means you just bet, and you hold pat and you hold firm and hope that they fold at the end. Again, if your opponent is capable of calling a few bets and then mucking it on the river, you can snowball them. If they're not capable of doing that and you've witnessed them be a calling station, don't try to snowball that guy, okay? Just a little word of advice. But if you start off with 3-to-1 suit and like a 9 low, that's pretty much the bare minimum that I'm gonna start off with. A 9 low, as long as I have either 2 spades and 2 diamonds, I prefer to have 3 spades, or even if you have 4 spades, then you can actually discard 3, and that makes sense. Again, I didn't study this on the internet. This is all based off of personal experience. I know there's gonna be people on the internet who are gonna say, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that, this doesn't work, this doesn't work. I appreciate those comments. Again, I appreciate you guys sharing with the viewers. I even appreciate sharing with me because I try to learn something every day, especially in the great game of poker. So again, on something like this, you keep 2. So I'd actually keep the 3 of spades and the 9 of diamonds, and then you discard the jack and the 8, because the strongest Badugi is going to start with your highest card and then go down. So for example, if we pull like a 5 of hearts, and then say we pull a jack of clubs, we have what's called a jack 9 Badugi, okay? Professor, what do you do if you're dealt a Badugi? Great question, Greg, right here in the front. I really appreciate you asking that question. Generally speaking, in Badugi, if you're dealt a Badugi and you're 6-handed, the law of averages say you raise, you get to the river and you pat, you don't draw anything else, you get to the river and you check. And then you have to make a determination, do I check and call 1 big bet? Do I check and fold? Is my opponent like super tight and he like never bluffs? But generally speaking, even if you're dealt a king high Badugi, you have 1 of each of the suits. Hold on to it, bet, raise, and then hope that they don't hit, okay? Law of averages, I think if you're up against 2 people, you're gonna be good. If you're up against 3, you're in trouble. That's just based on my personal experience. If you have a pat Badugi and there's 3 other people drawing, you're playing with fire. Okay, you probably still have 25% equity. I imagine 1 out of 4 times, all 3 of your opponents are gonna miss, but I do imagine about 3 out of the other 4 times, one of them is gonna pick up a better Badugi. So yeah, if you're dealt a pat Badugi, go ahead and raise. Also, if you're on the button with a Badugi, or with 2 to a low, like a 9 low, you can go ahead and call that. If you're out of the small blind now, and you have something like a 9, a 6, and then, you know, XX, say this is a spade, this is a club, this is a spade, this is a club, or it's like a jack and a king. If you're out of the small blind, I'm probably gonna fold any type of 9 low draw, okay? And the reason why is because position always matters, especially in this game, just like Deuce to 7. Being the last to act is so powerful, so powerful. Well, if the guy has position on you, the guy gets to see how many cards you draw, and he can go ahead and apply pressure, especially if he starts off with like spade, club. He knows it's unlikely you're gonna get a spade or a club, especially if you're drawing 1. He knows you have 3 of the other suits. So in any case, if I am out of the small blind, my lowest starting hand is either going to be a 7 or an 8. And that really is player dependent. Again, this is just to give you guys a guideline. It's not like an end all be all thing, because if I run into somebody who's incredibly tight and they raise, and I haven't seen them raise, and I have an 8-5 to start, I'm probably pitching that. Yeah, that's right. That's the right play, is to pitch an 8 when you're facing an opponent who's really, really tight. Now on the flip side, if I have a pat Badugi, I might re-raise them and then play cautiously, okay? There have been some times where you're gonna get to the river, you're gonna bet, your opponent's gonna raise, you're gonna re-raise, you're gonna 4-bet, and you're not sure if you should 5-bet, okay? The very first time I played Badugi was in a 5100 mixed game, and I was dealt a 6-4 Badugi. Yeah, I kept raising, and the guy 5-bet me. I think he might have even 6-bet me on the river. And I was like, oh my God, he must have the nuts. And I called. Maybe I had a 53 Badugi, I can't remember. But it was really, really strong. It was like the strongest hand I've ever seen. I think it was a 53. But in any case, hands that are generally going to win at Badugi are usually going to be a 9 low all the way down to about a 6 low. If you get down to a 6 low Badugi, you better play it like it's pretty damn close to the nuts. Because think about it, there's only 4 aces, deuces, 3s, 4, 5s, and 6s. And if you have like an ace, deuce, 4, 6 Badugi, so like 6 of spades, 4 diamonds, deuce of clubs, and then the ace of hearts, that's a 6-4 Badugi. That is pretty damn close to the nuts. This is a hand I'm probably gonna go broke on, or at least I'm gonna lose a few bets on if I end up losing on that hand, because that's really hard to do. Now, oh, great question. Suzanne in the back just asked, she says, Professor, what if both players only have a 3-card Badugi? And when do you bet that? That's an excellent question. Thank you so much, Susan, over there. So, if both players have a 3-card Badugi, it goes to whoever has the 3-card Badugi lowest. So, for example, if you have an ace of spades, a deuce of clubs, and a 3 of diamonds, this is what we call the nut 3-card Badugi. You have ace, deuce, 3. This is a hand that I'm going to raise with because you're blocking all the low cards. And it's also a hand that I'm probably going to raise the river with depending on my opponent. Again, this game is very opponent dependent. If your opponent's a calling station, yeah, I'm raising with this. Even if they bet out and they threw 1 on the river. The reason why is because they're going to call you with a lot of other 3-card Badugis. They're going to call you with like a 5-3 or even a 5-4. Any kind of 5 or lower when you have a 3-card Badugi, most people, including yours truly, is probably going to call. Okay? Because a 3-card Badugi, a 5 low, is pretty strong. Okay? Again, any 4-card Badugi will beat it though. King, queen, jack, 10. So, that's how you play Badugi. That's kind of the starting strategy. After that, you guys need to experiment a little bit with it. Now, the last thing I'll say when it comes to Badugi, and the reason why I'm teaching you these draw games in order is because one of the games that you can do is you can actually combine, and this is a little sneak peek, maybe not to next video, but the video after, you can combine deuce to 7 and Badugi, and that becomes Badusi, is what that's called. And you guessed it, it's deuce to 7 triple draw and Badugi at the same time. Oh my God. I know, your head is spinning, don't worry. It's kind of a headache. I hate that game. I play it, but I hate it. And I hate the strategy, but I'll play it. So, if you're curious what some of my weakest games are, Badusi is one of them. Even though I'm a really strong deuce to 7 triple draw player and a really strong Badugi player, Badusi, there's times when you're drawing and you're like, do I go for the 6 Badugi or do I go for the 7 low? So, in any case, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe, the bell for notifications. Go ahead and feel free to share it. And then as always, I always like feedback. Please tell me what you guys enjoy about this video, what you'd like to see next. Obviously, I'm going to cover ace to 5, low ball next, and then I'm going to go into Badusi and Badasi. I'm going to cover all the draw games before I go into anything else, and I might go into Omaha. So, as always, everybody, play smart and run like a god.